All right, Shalom. I want to start off as always by giving all praises and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Racha HaKodash. Double honors unto the apostles, the elders, and the bishops of Great Millstone. I want to say how much love unto the brothers out there doing his work in truth and sincerity. And I also want to send peace and blessings unto the believers of the hopeful elect. And in this lesson, I wanted to do pretty much a quick overview on something that I asked Grok about the scriptures. And as you can see here, the question that I posed towards him, I asked, what does Isaiah 60 mean? And I pretty much got this idea from watching the apostles and brothers, talk to ChatGTP, and also asked Grok certain things concerning the scriptures. And so I took it upon myself to ask Grok about Isaiah, the 60th chapter, which is one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, right? It's at the top of the list for me, Isaiah chapter 60, right? So I wanted to see what he had to say. And his response to what I asked him is in line with the truth, is in line with what we teach, man. And it goes to show you that Christianity does not have the truth. They don't understand the Bible. They don't understand the true meaning of the kingdom of heaven, the house of David, anything, right? But Grok explains to you what Isaiah chapter 60 really means, So I'll get into this here, and I'll just highlight a few points here. And Lord willing, this be edifying to you brothers and sisters out there. And maybe also, you can go and ask Grok these same questions and hopefully be edifying, right? So I asked him, what does Isaiah 60 mean? And this was his response. It says, Isaiah 60 is a chapter in the Old Testament book of Isaiah, often attributed to the prophet Isaiah or a later disciple, written in his tradition. It's a poetic and prophetic passage that speaks of hope, restoration, and the future glory of Jerusalem, often interpreted as Zion or God's people. So Grok understands that Isaiah is a future prophetic chapter, It hasn't happened yet. We understand this, right? And he said it's a poetic and prophetic passage that speaks of hope, restoration, and the future glory of Jerusalem, often interpreted as Zion or God's people. So it's the future hope of the Israelites, us. Isaiah received that vision. The Most High showed him, man, and he wrote it down for us to see. So Grok understand that this is a future glory for the Israelites, right? It says, written during or after the Babylonian exile, circa 6th century BCE. It addresses a people who have endured suffering and displacement, right? Not only during the Babylonian captivity, but we suffered under the Persians, under the Greeks, under the Romans, and especially here in Babylon the Great. We have been displaced, man, disenfranchised, all right? It says, offering a vision of renewal and divine favor. Below, I'll break down its meaning thematically and contextually, keeping it concise yet comprehensive with a focus on the chapter's key ideas, right? Now, I'm gonna scroll down here to where it says historical and literal context, right? And then I'll get to the points that I want. So it says Isaiah 60 is part of what scholars call Third Isaiah, chapters 56 through 66, likely written during the post uh, exilic period when the Jewish people were returning to Jerusalem after the Babylonian captivity. The city was in ruins and the people were disheartened. This chapter is a message of encouragement, envisioning a restored Jerusalem as a beacon of God's glory, drawing nations to it. Is highly poetic, using vivid imagery of light, wealth, and divine presence to convey its message. So Isaiah got very poetic in this chapter, man. All right. This is what Grok is telling us, which we know this already. Okay. But this is what the AI has to say. Okay. Esau's intelligence, right? So you jump down here. All right. He gives like a quick overview of the chapter, but I asked him, I said, give a deeper dive into the chapter, right? I'm asking him to give more detail in what he's trying to tell me in that first portion, right? So this was Grok response. It says, since you asked for a deeper dive into Isaiah 60, I'll provide a more detailed analysis, focusing on key verses, historical and theological nuances, literary structure, and its significance in Jewish and Christian traditions. I'll also explore its cultural and spiritual applications while keeping the responses thorough but organized. If you have a specific aspect, e.g., particular verses, historical details, or a tradition's perspective you'd like emphasized, let me know and I can tailor it further. So once again, going here to historical and cultural context, right? This is where it starts getting good, right? It says Isaiah 60 is a part of 3rd Isaiah, chapter 56 to 66, likely composed in the late 6th century BCE after the Babylonian exile, 587, 539 BCE. The Jewish people had returned to Jerusalem under Persian rule post 539 BCE, following Cyrus the Great's decree. The city was in ruins, the temple destroyed, and the community faced economic hardship and spiritual disillusionment. The prophet, either Isaiah or later disciple in his school, addresses the large community. Salakia, if I'm pronouncing that word wrong, or a beleaguered, I guess is beleaguered, which pretty much means like a difficult situation, right? It says, offering a vision of hope to counter their despair. The chapter reflects the ancient Near Eastern worldview where a nation's prosperity and influence were seen as signs of divine favor. The imagery of wealth, gold, frankincense, and foreign nations serving Jerusalem draws on this cultural context, portraying a reversal of the humiliation suffered during exile. So the Lord, man, gave Isaiah a vision, okay? And he gave him a vision, right, where the roles were reversed. And Jake was on top. And the heathens, especially Esau, was at the bottom, okay? They was in humiliation. And Jake was glorified, man. The Israelites. It says, the text also engages with Israel's covenant theology, where God's promises to Abraham, e.g., Genesis 12:3, blessing all nations, and the Davidic dynasty, e.g., 2 Samuel 7, are fulfilled in a restored Zion. The chapter covers that. Okay? The house of David, man, being restored. Israel as a whole being restored, right? So now it says literary structure and style. Isaiah 60 is a poetic oracle structured in three main sections with vivid imagery and parallelism typical of Hebrew prophecy. So let's go here to the verse by verse analysis, right? This where, it started getting real good, man. So I want to jump down here to point 2, right, that Grok made. It says return and prosperity, right? This is verse 4 to verse 9. So it says, text, lift up your eyes and look around. They all gathered together. They come to you. Your sons shall come from far away, and your daughters shall be carried on their nurses' arms. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. They shall bring gold and frankincense and shall proclaim the praise of the Lord. Meaning, right? Listen to the meaning that Grok gives of this verse, or I should say these verses, right? It says, meaning, this section envisions the return of exiled Israelites, sons and daughters, right? That's us. We are the exiled Israelites, okay? We've been scattered throughout the four corners of the world, man. But the Lord showed Isaiah a vision of us returning, man, back to the Holy Land, right? Both the Israelite men and the Israelite women, of the elect, that is, right? It says, this section envisions the return of exiled Israelites, sons and daughters, and the influx of wealth from nations, right? You see that? An influx of wealth, brother. We don't know what that is right now, okay? We don't know what that is right now, huh? But an influx of wealth is coming unto us from the nations. The best of what they have, okay? The top of the top. We're going to get that, man. An influx of wealth, brother. You want to talk about balling out? You want to talk about balling? When we get into the kingdom, brother, we're going to be balling, dog. I'm talking about balling. Doing it big, right? As Jake said, we're going to be doing it big. Influx of wealth from the nations. People think Elon Musk is rich, which, he got money, right? But it's not real wealth. These elites, okay, they have access to real wealth, meaning they have access to pretty much the best of what the nations have to offer in their lands. They have, real access to, top resources, man. But we're going to take it to another level, okay? It's things in the earth that Esau don't know about. It's things in the earth that Esau has no access to, but the Lord cut him off from it, okay? So though we are poor right now, in the kingdom, right, the Lord showed Isaiah a vision of the Israelites having an influx of wealth from the nations. It says, symbolized by caravans from Midian, Ephah, and Sheba, regions known for trade. So we're going to own trade routes. Do you know how powerful that is, brother? Do you know how powerful that is to control trade routes in different regions, okay? But it's going to be all across the world. We will control all the trade routes, man. In the sea, on the land, everything. We're going to control it. Right now, Esau and these heathens got the control, right? But once we get the kingdom, all of that stuff they trading and, buying and selling all this, that's coming to Jake. And that's why we're going to have an influx of wealth from the nations. Everything that they got, they're going to give it to us. It says the mention of gold and frankincense, verse 6, invokes royal tribute and worship, elevating Jerusalem's status. And we will be elevated, okay? It's going to be known throughout the whole world that Jake is back on top, that Yahushua is the king. They're going to know it, they're going to see it, they're going to feel it, okay? Elevating Jerusalem's status, right? It says the return of exile fulfills God's promise to regather his people, e.g., or example given, Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 1 and 5. And you can go read that, boy. Go read that. That's talking about salvation, the regathering of the Israelites. Okay, the elect, that is. But that goes into the new covenant as well. If you read all the way down to verse 9 to 10, I believe, in Deuteronomy chapter 30 and 5, right? It says, the return of exiles fulfills God's promise to regather his people. Example given, Deuteronomy 30, 1 through 5. The nation's tribute signifies their acknowledgement of Israel God, aligning with the Abrahamic covenant, Genesis 12 and 3. In Christian readings, the gold and frankincense prefigure the Magi's gifts to Yahushua, Matthew 2 and 11. It says cultural context. The reference to specific regions, Median Sheba, reflects trade routes and wealth in the ancient world, grounded in prophecy and familiar imagery. The idea of foreigners serving Jerusalem reverses the power dynamic of exile where Israel served Babylon. So the Lord, okay, he about to reverse the power dynamic. Right now, Esau got the power. Right now, Esau has the power, but according to the prophecy, it says the idea of foreigners serving Jerusalem reverses the power dynamic of exiles. The Lord, brother, Yahushua is coming to change the power dynamic, man. Do you know how impactful that is, to bring Jake out of this condition, to bring Jake out of this mindset, out of all this trash, and crown Jake as a king, man? We're going to be kings and priests. And we're going to truly have the power, like real power, okay? It won't be no fake AI technology. No, we're going to have real power, all right? Yahushua going to do this for us, man. It says, jumping down here to point 3, it says, rebuilding and honor, right? Verses 10 through 16. It says, text, foreigners shall build up your walls, and their kings shall minister to you. Your gates shall always be open. Day and night they shall not be shut, so that nations shall bring you their wealth. The descendants of those who oppress you shall come bending low to you. Meaning, This section emphasizes Jerusalem's physical and spiritual restoration. Foreigners and kings, once oppressors, now serve the city, contributing to its rebuilding. So our oppressors will turn into servants. If that's not power, I don't know what power is. Our oppressors will be turned into our servants, man. That is power. And they're going to contribute to its rebuilding. They're going to build our walls. We're going to have them in captivity. Okay? It says, open gates symbolize peace and constant prosperity, as there's no need for defensive closure. Ooh. Hey, you guys who teaching about Magog attacking us in the kingdom of heaven, you're wrong, you're lost. Even Grok understands that once we get the kingdom, there's no need for defensive closure. How the hell Grok get it right before you guys, man? You guys teaching that Russia going to attack us in the kingdom of heaven. Grok said, hell no. Grok said that's not going to happen. But we've been said this way before Grok. Okay, the apostles been said this way before Grok. So Grok is confirming what we're teaching. There's no need for defensive closure. Because guess what? Nobody's going to attack us. Nobody. Okay, you're crazy to think, bro, come on, man. You think somebody's going to attack Yahushua and his kingdom, bro? The Lord. In full power and glory. Man, come on, man. Come on, dog. It says, theological nuance. The reversal of roles, oppressors bowing to Zion, underscores God's justice and sovereignty. The everlasting pride, verse 15, reflects the eternal covenant with Israel, not with the world, but with Israel. In Christian eschatology, this points to New Jerusalem, where nations bring their glory to God's city. Cultural context, in the post-exilic period, Jerusalem walls were indeed rebuilt, e.g. Nehemiah 2, but the text grandeur far exceeds historical reality, suggesting a symbolic or future fulfillment, and it is. Look, bro, it wasn't talking about Nehemiah. No, this is the kingdom of heaven that Isaiah talking about. Okay, it says the idea of constant trade reflects an idealized economy, contrasting with the poverty of returning exiles. So yes, it's a future prophecy, right? It says, point 4 here, then I ready to close out on this one. Point 4 says eternal light and righteousness, right? Text, it says, instead of bronze, I will bring gold. Instead of iron, I will bring silver. No longer shall violence be heard in your land. The sun shall no longer be your light by day, nor brightness shall the moon give light to you by night. But the Lord will be your everlasting light. Your people shall all be righteous. Meaning, right? So this is what Grok says. This climactic session portrays a transformed Jerusalem, where base materials are replaced with precious ones, symbolizing divine abundance. And we're going to have it in the kingdom of heaven. All right? Divine abundance. It says violence and sorrow are eradicated, and God himself becomes the city's eternal light, surpassing natural creation. The righteousness of the people and their eternal inheritance fulfill the Most High's covenant promise, which is only to the Israelites. How does Grok know this, but you Christians don't know this? It says theological nuance. The replacement of sun and moon with God's light suggests a new creation, which when Isaiah said that, he was talking about wisdom and knowledge. Okay, he wasn't talking about the actual sun or moon being replaced. So Grok is wrong in that point. So but it says here, the righteous people, verse 21, reflect a restored covenant relationship. The promise that the least of them shall become a clan emphasizes God's power to multiply and bless, meaning what? Brother, we're going to have a lot of kids in the kingdom of heaven. A bunch of kids, okay? That's the promise. It says, cultural context, the absence of violence and the permanence of God's light address the fear of a community vulnerable to regional instability. Once again, this is a cut to you guys who say that God is going to attack us in the kingdom of heaven. Are you crazy? Grok knows this. You guys don't know this. There will be no regional instability, man, like what's going on over there in the Holy Land today. It will not happen. It says the imagery draws on temple theology where God's presence dwelt in Zion, now extend to the entire city. So I'll stop right there, bro. But this is, a little quick detailed overview of that chapter, man. Grok was going in, okay? Grok 3 was going in, bro. He knows things that certain Israelites don't know. And that's scary, okay? He knows things that you Christians don't know. And I have yet to see a Christian break down Isaiah the 60th chapter. They will not address that chapter, okay? Because if they do, they're going to have to put their foots in their mouth. So I'm going to close out with that, man. I pray it was edifying, all right? But I just thought that information was very interesting, when I read it, man. So I decided to make a video of it, all right? So Lord, when it was edifying, I'll praise you. How about Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Chakadash, Shalom.